Hi people. If you've ever seen a video of someone with a stupid amount of gold, what they've most likely done is played the auction house. Or farmed like an absolute no-lifer, that is also a possibility. The principle behind playing the auction house is basically to buy stuff cheap and sell them expensive. That could, for example, be done by looking for price caps for a specific item. If just a few stacks of healing potions are selling for 40 silver apiece, and the second cheapest goes for 55 silver apiece, you could buy the ones for 40 and sell them for 55, making a profit that way. Obviously, the more gold you have, the more expensive items you can do this with, which will likely increase your gold earned. It's like Monopoly, you know? The bigger your wealth is, the more it increases. Speaking of Monopoly, by the way, that is also an option for people who have very large amounts of gold. You could, for example, buy every single elemental fire on the auction house and sell them more expensively. This, however, has a tendency to help everyone but yourself, as the second guy or girl who comes to post elemental fires can now post them just below your new, very unfair price without having to have bought all of the others. And people no longer have to buy it at your very unfair price, but can settle for the second person's only unfair price. Another way of using the auction house is to combine it with professions. For example, if you can make major mana potions, and the price of the herbs needed to make one is lower than what the potion sells for, then you can simply buy the mats, craft the potion, and sell them. Yet another idea is to check the price for large brilliant shards, and then see how much the cheapest blue items above level 51 sells for. They are the ones that disenchant into brilliant shards, by the way. If you can disenchant, you can often earn some gold that way. Whenever a new rare consumable or enchant is introduced, you can earn a lot of gold by simply being one of the very few who can make that certain item. You can decide the price for yourself. Almost, at least. Maybe you have seen how the first few who got the Lionheart helmet receipt could take 100 gold in crafting fee. Or perhaps the enchanters with 30 spell power could take 40 gold enchanting fee. Whenever you post anything, if you decide to undercut, meaning selling it cheaper than the current lowest price, make sure to undercut by a very small amount. Seen from a gold-making perspective, everyone who posts things on the auction house will benefit if the price of an item drops slowly instead of quickly. So, if everyone only undercuts by a silver, then after 10 undercuts, the price will only have dropped by 10 silver. But if everyone undercuts by a gold, the price will have gone down 10 gold. But like I said earlier, if someone undercuts by a fairly large percentage, you could take advantage of the price gap and earn money on that. Another important thing is to know how the prices on the auction house fluctuates, meaning goes up and down over time. Often, they will have stabilized around a certain price and won't deviate too much from that. If you could predict this fluctuation, you could take advantage of it. Of course, the prices follow supply and demand pretty well, and demand usually spikes during Tuesdays and Wednesday whenever people buy their consumables for raids. So, if you want to sell anything related to raid consumables, it's a good idea to wait and sell it until those days during the week. If you have an add-on which shows the vendor price of items, you could scan the auction house for items which are auctioned for less than what they vendor for. Just buy the items and vendor them for a profit. One more possibility is found with items which people usually only need one of. For example, an Arcanite Transmute only needs one Thorium bar and one Arcane Crystal. but thorium bars are usually sold in stacks of 20. People will sometimes be willing to pay a higher price per unit if they need smaller amounts. They would rather buy 1 bar for 2 gold than 10 bars for 1 gold, as an example. That might be a bit over the top, but it's just to give you an idea of how this works. It should also be mentioned, even though it technically doesn't have much to do with the auction house, that no gold is added to the game via the auction house. The gold just switches owner. And actually, the auction house reduces the amount of gold in the game due to the auction house cut. All gold comes from vendoring items and completing quests. There is of course inflation in Classic as well as the real world. So, if you only save your gold by keeping it in your bag, it's going to lose its relativistic value over time, meaning the amount of gold you have compared to everyone else decreases. Most likely, the price of materials will increase over time as the inflation progresses. In the first days of the server, you could find very rare twink items for very low prices on the auction house, because no one had any gold to spend. If you would have looted Shadowfang during day 5 of the server and sold it, you would maybe have made 20 gold. If you had held on to it until today, you could probably sell it for 200 gold at least. It's the same principle, except not as extreme. Now, a great add-on for doing all of the things mentioned above is the Trade Skill Master add-on. It is perhaps a little complicated, but you can find guides on how to use it. If you decide to try and earn gold in any of the ways I mentioned, Trade Skill Master will be helpful. All the ways of earning money on the auction house that I have ever seen has been a version of what I've mentioned. But I'm not all-knowing, perhaps there is even more ways to earn gold with the auction house. Also, I have tried to not sound as much as a robot as I apparently usually do. Please leave a comment telling me whether that is working or if I still sound like Microsoft Sam.
You actually elected Microsoft.
Actually, I just listened to some Microsoft Sam on YouTube and honestly, I'm starting to get your point, people. Anyways, I hope this gave you an idea of how you could use the saved gold you have to earn even more, or at least prevent it from decaying in value over time. Like if you enjoyed, and subscribe in case I ever were to make any more videos.